Hello, everyone. Thanks for joining us. This is Stephanie Buckland, and here for another Connecting to Healing interview. Today, I'm interviewing the lovely Brandi Leigh. Thanks for joining me, Brandi.
Hi, of course. Thanks for having me.
Definitely. So I would love to take our listeners down memory lane and just talk about your healing journey. So when did it officially begin? When did you really start to
So it's probably
realize you needed healing? Sorry.
it was really my early 20s. I started to realize that. So first of all, I was dealing with really bad fibromyalgia at the time, and it had actually started when I was 13, and I didn't even understand what fibromyalgia was in the beginning. And when I would bring it up to doctors, they always frankly assumed I was drug seeking when I would describe the amount of physical pain and fatigue that I was in. And so I just kind of learned to live with it until I was about 21. And it got bad enough that I went to a doctor and I said, listen, like this, I need help. Like, I know that everybody I've tried to talk to about this, they don't believe me. I look healthy, I look fine, but I am in unbearable pain. Like, if you barely touch my arm, it's excruciating. And so they did all the tests, they did all the things. And, of course, nothing came back. And they said, well, then it's probably fibromyalgia. And that's what that is. So I was like, okay, so I just have to live with this then. And they said, yes. So I was in constant chronic pain, but also fatigue. I would wake up and no matter how many hours of sleep I got, I was exhausted. Like, I'd never slept in my life. And at this point, I graduated and started teaching English when I was 23. I already had two kids at this point. I was married, and I was getting really frustrated because on the surface, it looked like I had this really great life and I was happy. I loved my children. I loved my husband. I loved my job. For the most part, beginning teaching was tough, but I didn't understand why I was also dealing with like a lot of just unexplainable anger and emotional pain that I just could not explain away, including things like nightmares and um, just like really powerful emotional reactions on a daily basis that I just couldn't navigate effectively. And so I don't know, there was kind of, I started to read different things or have different teachers or family members in my life who taught me the relationship between emotional trauma and, things like fibromyalgia and physical pain. And once I started to learn more about the connection between those things, I was like, well, I really need to understand this link and I need to master and solve whatever that is. So I started just like obsessively trying to figure out, okay, what about my past is the problem? What is every kind of therapy and book and doctor and modality that I can do to kind of heal this and to finally be able to be happy and not in pain and not angry and really enjoy the life that I've built that should be enough, that should make me happy the way I want it to. So that was kind of where my journey through that started.
So then what was the most important thing you learned during this healing process?
So that's a big question. I think that the answer to that is honestly what ended up becoming the message of the book that I'm writing. And it's that when we use unconditional love as a mindset, and when I say that, I mean not only like in the way that we unconditionally love ourselves and the way that we unconditionally love each other and hold strong boundaries, but very specifically as a mindset or a way of thinking about things, that we can revisit those experiences and that emotional trauma in a way that is compassionate as opposed to just evoking more trauma or more anger. And also to move through personal growth and acknowledge the things that we were doing because we were sad or because we were in pain, and not judging ourselves and feeling less than, like, oh, if I was more disciplined, I wouldn't have been a smoker. Or if I had been a better person, I wouldn't, have so many difficulties with this kind of stuff. And having that as a mindset and saying lovingly, I am going to heal and that it's okay. And I don't need to feel ashamed or embarrassed about it. And also being able to revisit experiences with people in my past with the same kind of mentality, if they were human beings whose sadness, whose pain led them to do things that, you know, they just didn't know how to navigate either any more than I did with my own life and my own children as an adult at that point. And so unconditional love as a mindset is really that big thing that I took away from it.
That is a big thing. I get that. So when did you realize that you had completed that part of your healing journey?
So the fibromyalgia was gone. I was finally gosh, there's a quote, I'm trying to remember what it is, but it's something like joy is happiness that doesn't need anything. And it was when I reached that space where, frankly, seeing a sunset or it starting to rain a little was enough to make me cry from gratitude and joy in that moment. And realizing that I was finally in that space and free and light. And also in the same exact breath that during that entire time, I had felt called to write a book. Like I really knew that this was something I needed to do. The universe had been very loud about it, and every tarot reading and every meditation and every labyrinth walk, it kept saying, you need to write a book, you need to write a book. And I was like, okay, well, about what? What am I writing a book about? And it was at that point when I was on the other side of this that I was able to look back and say, oh, wow, I can see the path now. Like I can see what steps were critical. I can see what role unconditional love as a mindset played. I can see how that facilitated emotional healing, how it facilitated compassionate personal growth. Like I see this trajectory so clearly. This is clearly what my book is about. And I think for a lot of people who go through this journey and get to the end of it, the very first impulse for most of us is, how do I tell this to other people? How do I help somebody who's where I was at the beginning of this get over here faster and easier and less afraid and less lonely than I did when I went through that? And so that was when I knew that I was on the other side of it.
That's powerful. Wow. So how has this healing experience informed your business development? So you started your business when?
So officially around fall of last year. And so it was kind of this like concurrent adventure that I've been on, honestly, because there's my book and the organization that I'm building to go with that, which is all about that unconditional love as a mindset and building an organization dedicated to helping the world become more loving by learning these skills and treating that as a skill. Because it's not just something you just like wake up and you're magically loving. Like that's not how that works. Like it takes practice, it takes conscious effort and learning and growth. And so that's the organization that I'm building. But the main business that other business that I do now is teaching people how to write their books, because when I went through that, that was also its own separate journey and struggle. Was, what is the book I'm supposed to write? I keep being told, write a book, but I don't know how to go from I want to write a book to I am writing a book. What are those steps? What are those pieces? And so that led me to create what I do now, which is helping people to write their story and share their knowledge, people who have gotten on the other side of something and said, I really need to help other people by sharing what I've learned. And so I built a program called It's Time to Write Your Book, and it helps you lay those pieces out so that you can write it, regardless of your writing background. By the way, that's something that's really important to me. Like, regardless of how comfortable someone is with writing, everyone has an authentic writing voice, whether they remember it or not, they can. And to validate their stories and their knowledge and their wisdom and what they've gained through those experiences. And most importantly, to share it with other people. So
I think that's really important. God, if I would have found you 10 years ago, I probably would have said, hey, Brandi, I need your help.
Likewise, I wish I'd known, me too. Like, I wish I'd had this before, but you know what? It's okay.
So you mentioned that you have a course available. Do you have any other services or products available right now?
Yeah, so I started the It's Time to Write Your Book program as a course, and it's an 8-hour course that takes you through the foundational pieces of your message, your audience, your style, your authentic writing voice, your table of contents, your introduction. That whole foundation gets built out. And I've recently added 2 mentorship programs. One is a 6-week one and one is 12 weeks, where we meet bi-weekly and I help you kind of set your goals for when you want to be done. And then do like 2-hour sessions of feedback, set a goal of like, what are you going to finish that week? You send it to me, I read, give feedback, and we kind of build it out together. So those are the 2 programs that I also offer now as well.
Nice. So then do you expect people to go through the program and finish the book as they're writing?
That's the idea. So if you
That's
do
awesome.
the 6-week, I get you as far as we can in that window. 12 weeks, it kind of depends on your life and schedule and how long your book is. Cause like mine, for example, is massive. Like it's going to take me at least a year per book. And there's for sure 4 books. Like there's no 12-week program in the world that would help me finish my book. But there are a lot of books that you could finish in a weekend, and not because they're like, it's just something that if you have the right structure in place and you know what it is you're trying to get out. Because like if you look at Mastery of Love by Don Miguel Ruiz, like you could write that in a weekend, you know, theoretically, like it's so short, but so powerful. So length isn't always necessarily the key feature there, but yeah.
So what experiences from your own healing journey do you bring in as teaching points for your clients? I mean, obviously, unconditional love is a mindset, is a big one.
Yeah, it is, honestly. So the whole premise of my program and why I teach this and how I teach this is that I believe that when we do writing in this way, and especially when we're talking about these vulnerable experiences of our lives, that it needs to be centered in a place of love. Like writing is an act of service, writing is an act of love for the people that we're giving it to, the people who need it from us, and staying very centered in that place of, I'm not talking to an abstract avatar of a person who's X years old and has X number of children and has X degrees. Like that's not of interest to me. That's not emotionally connected enough. And so at the beginning of my book, I actually have a note written to one of my best friends. And I said, this book is for you. And it really informed my program a lot to realize that for me, having a one-person audience, somebody I loved very deeply, changed my voice, it changed my writing, it changed everything I did. And so that's a big part of it, that unconditional love and doing things out of wanting to help other people. But it's also like about validating ourselves and our journeys and acknowledging that what we went through is important and what we learned is meaningful. And so many people that I talk to, and when we first started doing it together, like, well, I didn't climb Everest. Nobody wants to read my story. And I said, well, I haven't climbed Everest and I don't plan to. So that story doesn't resonate with me, to be honest. Like we're all looking for those stories that connect with us and our values and our experiences and things we've been through. And your audience needs your story, not anyone else's, yours very specifically. And there's so much power and compassion in honoring ourselves and saying this is important and this matters and it's valuable. So that's also part of how that informed it.
Awesome. Who benefits from these classes the most, do you think?
Somebody who doesn't want to write a book just to write a book, but is doing it because they want to make a real difference and to share what they know so that other people benefit from that. And sometimes it's something more concrete, like here are these steps to healing, or here's how nutrition could change your health and your overall quality of life. But it also could be as something not so direct and more like, here's my story, sharing this with you so that you feel less alone on yours. Like there's so much value even in that. And so regardless of the purpose, the underlying point being somebody who wants to write a book because it would make a difference in someone else's life.
That is very important. I've been working on my own book for quite some time, and I want to save the world.
Yeah.
So that actually I started to create a business instead of finishing the book. So.
I relate. I'm doing both at the same time and I completely understand.
So what's next for your business?
So honestly, right now it is helping as many people write their books as I possibly can. And also ideally getting them as far into it as I possibly can with those mentorship programs. Because I've noticed that like, if I can get you to cross the bridge from I want to write a book to I am writing a book, that's huge. That is the biggest first step, the most terrifying one. Once you've crossed that, you would be okay. Like you would be all right. And even if you took a 5-year break, you could come back and be like, you know what? I took a 5-year break. Not a fan of that plan, but I did it and it's okay because I know what my book is, who it's for, why it's important. Like all of that is clear. But in the mentorship programs, the advantage is obviously that you get further in. Like the more progress you make, the less likely it is you're going to take that 5-year break or go start another business like we did, and be a little bit more confident and efficient and quick in actually making it happen. And the sooner it gets to the people who need it, the better. So
awesome. So how can people get in touch with you?
Yeah, so my website is www.withlovebrandi.com, and that's Brandi with an I, withlovebrandi.com. And then I'm also on Facebook and Instagram, but yeah, that's where I'm at.
Great. Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Brandi. Do you want to leave our listeners with any final thoughts?
If you are waiting for the 800 different reasons that I've heard both and experienced myself that are out there for why you're waiting, the I'll do it one day will turn into 10 years or another 10 years faster than you realize. And that if you can just get across that first step, like if you haven't started yet, or even if you're like me and you were like, I keep being told to write a book and I have no idea what it is. How am I supposed, like, really, am I going to actually go do this now? Yes, you can. And those are frankly some of my absolute favorite people to work with. And that's why I built the program that I did. It is for that person who says, I don't even, who am I to write a book? I don't even know if I'm a writer. I don't even know if my story is important enough. I don't even know what I would say about it. That's who this program is for. And those are the people that I want to serve the most because that's the person that I was. And it was the struggle that I went through. And you can do that in 8 hours, by the way. And that's only 2 hours of teaching and 6 hours of actually writing and doing the process so that you have real tangible things in your hands that exist. So whatever the reason is, I promise you, I've got you. It's going to be okay. And yes, you can do this. So that's what I would say.
Nice. Well, thank you so much, Brandi. This is awesome. Looking forward to sharing it.
Thank you for having me.